Welcome to Family Lifestyles. I'm Janey Cline, Family Consumer Science Agent for Hart County. I have with me today Lynn Blankenship. Lynn is the Metcalfe County Family and Consumer Sciences Agent. Good morning, Lynn.
Morning, Janey. Good to see you again.
Yes, yes. You have a very important subject to talk about today.
Well, yeah, and I kind of hate to bring up the fact that we are having a problem with another germ because we're in the middle of a COVID pandemic right now that the world is suffering with. But in America, we're also seeing an uptick in salmonella cases. And they're attributing it to an increased number of backyard flocks. People are keeping more chickens. They're home. A lot of people are home. They're not working.
I know, just in the quarantine, all three of my children have obtained a backyard flock.
Yes, yes. So, this is something that's become very common, and it's great that people want to provide more of their food and be more self-sufficient. However, the salmonella is directly attributed to the increase in backyard flocks. And last year we had 41 diagnosed cases in Kentucky, and we were the highest state in the nation last year. And this year we're already at or over 34 diagnosed cases. So we're almost where we were after 12 months last year, after 6 months this year.
Wow.
So it's significant.
Yeah, that's not where we want to be.
No, we
don't want to be on the top of that.
And something that they're noticing is a lot of the diagnosed cases are children under 5 years of age.
Okay.
Because, you know how little kids are. They put things near their face. They put their hands in their mouth, right? So kids, are cute little chicks, and they're loving on their new little chicks, and they're putting them up near their face and maybe kissing them, and maybe they're playing with them. Even if they're not doing that, maybe they're not washing their hands afterwards. Maybe they're in the coop and not washing their hands, or walking into the house with the shoes that they were wearing when they were in the coop, and they're tracking in stuff into the house, and then they're playing on the floor later on. And this is how salmonella spreads from the chicken coop into the home. And so, we're really looking at trying to get the word out to people and to try to share some good information on how they can prevent salmonella infections coming into their home.
Our backyard chickens are wonderful because they give basically a science lab for children.
Absolutely.
But we just have to be careful about it.
Well, part of science is learning how to do it safely, right? And implementing safe procedures. And when you know that there is salmonella in a chicken coop, you need to learn how to reduce that and how not to bring it from the coop into the home. Little chicks are super cute. They're not as cute when they get older. I kind of think of chickens as little dinosaurs in my mind, and they run around, and they're great. They reduce the amount. If you're letting them free range, they're going to be eating ticks in your yard, and all kinds of bugs that you really don't want in your yard. Those numbers will be reduced. So you get lots of benefits from letting chickens free range, but also, again, when they're free ranging, they're just pooping everywhere. I mean, wherever they feel like pooping. And, if your kids are running around outside barefoot, and maybe they get a little cut on the bottom of their foot, and then they step in chicken poop. These are all things to consider when it comes to the increasing numbers of salmonella infections. These are the ways that it's happening.
We always think of it, we eat, something that the salmonella is on.
Yes.
And so
usually
we're
chicken or eggs.
Yeah. But we think of consuming it like that, not a cut.
Picking it up environmentally.
Right, exactly.
Right. So there's a lot of practices that when you get chickens, they don't come with an instruction manual. Just like when you have kids, they don't come with an instruction manual, right? And you kind of have to do a little bit of research to learn the safe ways to keep chickens, and especially if you have young children or older people in your home who are going to be more susceptible to a salmonella infection. So children under 5, people over the age of 65, they really don't even recommend that they handle farm eggs, raw eggs from the coop, or like collecting the eggs in the coop and washing eggs and things like that. Because if they do get an infection, they're at a higher risk of having a more serious infection than the people in the middle.
Yes.
So, there's lots of recommendations and information out there from the Extension Service and from the CDC on keeping backyard flocks. It's all free. There's a Wally Cat poster that UK has created, and it's aimed at young children to help them learn how to safely interact with their chickens. And the main things that poster is kind of looking at is to teach children to handle only one chick at a time.
Okay.
They should hold the chick with both hands and not squeeze the chick. They should keep their hands away from their face, mouth, and eyes while they're handling chicks. And actually, we're trying to teach children how to do this for the COVID-19 as well. So this message is congruent with that. And we can just look at germs in general and do little germ and hand washing lessons with our children at home. We can teach them appropriate hand washing. And now we have there's really good reasons to say, there's two different germs there. We have chickens and they have a germ, and there's another germ that's out there, and we can prevent getting sick by simply washing our hands and singing happy birthday twice, not touching our face, et cetera, et cetera. So the Wally Cat poster focuses on that, and then just not touching your face. It's really hard to teach young children these lessons.
It is. It's hard to teach adults those lessons as well.
I mean, we just do these things without even thinking about it. People don't really realize how much they touch their face until they're told not to, or they're wearing a mask or whatever, and then you're like, oh, I'm touching my face again. Oh, yeah. I'm touching my face again. So, this is probably a good skill for young children to learn at a very young age, and now we have more reasons to teach children these types of self-protective practices. And so if you do have chickens at home, you have two things to talk to your children about: reasons why they should wash their hands and not touch their face,
right,
etc., things like that. Again, I mentioned, the age range where they're saying people should be very careful if they're under 5 years or over 65 years. Anyone with a weakened immune system shouldn't handle or touch live poultry. That's the recommendation, because they're at a higher risk for contracting the salmonella
and
infection.
The 65 or older are going to probably have more of a problem with that, just because they've handled them their whole life.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our farm people, will have chickens, and they've, like you say, have always had them. But I would posit that they probably understand the appropriate practices for keeping the levels of salmonella down in their coops, and how to wash eggs appropriately and things like that. Then maybe some people who just got chickens and have just started animal husbandry maybe don't have that information, because it didn't come with an instruction manual.
Right.
So we're going to let people know some of that information today and where they can find some of this information in print for free, so that they can make it as safe as possible to have their backyard flock and reduce the risk of the salmonella infection. So again, we don't want to bring the live poultry into the home. Keeping the poultry outside, keeping it cooped or in a chicken tractor so that you can control the areas where they're ranging in your yard, and then that'll also keep, the poop contained to a certain area and your children won't be running through it. Practices like that are things that you can do. Teaching children not to snuggle or kiss the birds, not putting them up to their face when they're holding them and handling them. Using a pair of shoes or boots in the coop that you only use in the coop and taking them off outside, those kinds of things.
Those are such great tips, and it's really good to bring awareness to that type thing. But we're going to take a break for just a minute, and then we're going to come back, and I think you've got some ideas of how we can clean the coop, and also maybe some things about the eggs. So please stay with us. We will be right back.
We're here early before they wake up. We stay late, we stay informed, we invest in the latest technology.
We take the time to train the next generation of doctors and nurses. We work together to make sure we heal their bodies and their minds.
We do this not because it's our job, but because this is about our veterans' lives. This is our mission. More than 300,000 of us working as one, together with families and loved ones. No matter where they live in this country, we'll be there.
We all come together and stand together to serve our veterans. We stand strong, united. Stand with us in caring for our veterans.
Welcome back to Family Lifestyles. I'm Janey Cline, Family and Consumer Science Agent for Hart County, and Lynn Blankenship is here with us today, the Metcalfe County Agent. And Lynn, you've been talking to us today about backyard flocks, and you mentioned something in the first segment about if a child got a scrape on their foot or whatever, and then they stepped in the waste from the chicken, that they could pick up salmonella. Are there other ways they could possibly do that?
Yes, if anyone is scratched or pecked by a chicken, which, you know, if you have a rooster, sometimes they can be aggressive because they're protecting their hens, and they may perceive you as a threat if you approach quickly, and they may come up and they may spur you, or you may get pecked. And if it breaks your skin, you should wash it immediately with soap and water, and you should seek medical attention if the bird was acting unusually or appears sick in any way.
Okay.
If the wound or injury is serious, if there's uncontrolled bleeding, if you're unable to move, if there's extreme pain, which if you've ever been spurred by a chicken, it's pretty intense and it can hurt and they can go pretty deep. I've experienced this myself, and so has my husband.
You sound like you have.
So
I actually haven't.
It isn't fun, and it does hurt depending on where they get you. If there's extreme pain, if the muscle or the bone is showing, or if the bite is over a joint, you should seek medical attention.
Okay.
If the wound or the site of the injury becomes red, painful, warm, or swollen, that's an indication it's infected. You should seek medical attention. And if it's been more than 5 years since you've had a tetanus shot, you should seek medical attention.
Okay.
If you get spurred or scratched or bitten by a chicken or any other type of poultry.
Okay.
In your backyard.
Well, those are some really great tips, and tips that I had not thought about. Growing up on a farm my whole life, I just thought, I did not realize that you could get it like through a cut or an open wound or whatever.
You can get it like that as well.
Well, can we just have chickens anywhere? Can we just,
No.
like if I live in the city, can I just have chickens?
Every city will have an ordinance, and some cities will allow chickens. Some cities will say you can have chickens, but no roosters, because the roosters start crowing early in the morning, and that can interfere with a noise ordinance in the city.
Okay.
Your neighbors will not be happy with you if you have a rooster and they start crowing at 4 a.m. Us farm people are used to hearing that, and you just kind of, it doesn't bother you after a while. But other people may not be and may not appreciate getting woke up that way or that early in the morning. So Glasgow, right here locally in Barron County, does not allow the keeping of any chickens at private residences within the city limits. So Bowling Green does.
Well, that's
all right.
unusual.
So you just, what you can do is you can just Google Bowling Green city ordinance chickens. And you will get put right into whatever, your city ordinance is. There'll be several links showing.
Okay, so they're all out on the web then. I don't have to call anybody or anything like that.
Unless you want to, or you don't have internet access. And then you could just probably, call someone, in
like
your
the city hall,
city government, and just ask them what it is, and they'll connect you to whoever you need to talk to.
Okay.
So if you live out in the country, you don't need to worry about it. But when we were talking about zoning in cities, a lot of cities do have these zoning issues where they won't allow private residences to keep chickens in the city limits. So you do need to check if you live in the city limits. And you definitely, if you're getting chickens, you should find the most local veterinarian who will work with poultry, because you may have some issues and you're going to need a resource person to talk to. And especially if you have one chicken that gets sick and you don't want it to spread, and you notice this chicken is sick and you want to know, is this something I can cure, or is it something that we need to just put the chicken down to keep it away from the other chickens?
We often don't think about a veterinarian for a chicken,
poultry.
We think of it for cows and then dogs and cats and that type thing, but we don't think of it for chickens.
Yes.
So. Would you be looking more toward a vet that does small animals, a small animal vet?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm not 100% certain. So if you try to call around to a couple of vets and you can't find one that will work with poultry, you may check with your local ag agent. They may know a vet.
Okay.
Or maybe your ag agent is a poultry specialist or knows another ag agent that works close by.
Right. Or maybe put them in touch with a specialist.
Or put them in touch with a specialist up at UK.
Yeah.
So, you have resources to reach out to, but you should know who you can go to if you do seem to have, if one of your chickens does seem to have a health problem. And so that's one thing you want to find out. You want to learn what types of poultries are suitable. Some breeds are more aggressive than others. You want to decide, do you want fertile eggs or not non-fertilized eggs?
Okay.
And, a rooster will protect your chickens. If you live out in the country, that can be very valuable. There's all kinds of animals that like chicken. Everyone likes chicken. Chicken is good. And so a rooster offers a lot of protection to a flock. But again, we talked about the crowing issue and the aggressiveness issue. So if you have young children, you might not want to have a rooster. Keep your chickens tractored. They'll stay safer that way. Make sure your coop is safe and you can keep chickens without a rooster. So the CDC.gov does have a healthy poultry website. It's got lots of resources on it that can help you learn how to safely keep your flock. Okay. One of the things that people a lot of times don't think about is cleaning the coop, and the coops need to be cleaned. Otherwise, the salmonella levels in the coop will increase. Now, when the eggs come out and they're laid, they're essentially sterile, but then they sit in the nest and then the bird is on them and then the bird poops and they have poop on their feathers and it gets on the eggs. And if you've ever collected eggs from out of a nest, you'll see that they've got some poop and some feathers and some other dirt and things stuck to the egg. So the cleaner you keep your coop, the cleaner your eggs are going to be when you collect them. And, you're going to use like a diluted bleach solution or a special cleanser for coops. They're all available at feed stores and things like that. You can buy them. And you have to dry brush everything first, and you should use a brush or a broom that you just use in the coop, and then you can apply disinfectant. And once you apply your disinfectant, then you let it sit for the recommended amount of time. It's usually 5 to 10 minutes, and then you rinse it off and then let everything air dry. Okay. And that's how you keep a coop or a chicken tractor clean. It has to be done periodically. So doing that will help to keep the levels of salmonella lower in your coop. So you want to also clean your eggs, and there's a lot of information about cleaning eggs. There are egg cleansers that are available. The temperature of the water is very important, so you're going to need to have a thermometer, because if you clean your eggs and the water is cooler than the egg temperature, then it will draw the water and the cleanser into the inside of the egg, and it can affect the flavor and the quality of your egg. And it can also make eggs spoil quicker. Yeah. And it can also cause shell breakage depending on the temperature variation. So you definitely want to make sure that your eggs are around room temperature when you clean them, and not hotter. So if you've collected them out and it's really hot outside, bring them inside into your air-conditioned or cooler home. Let them come to room temperature. And then you want your egg cleansing water to be between 110 and 120 degrees Fahrenheit to prevent that from happening. And then you're going to follow the instructions on your cleanser, whatever the instructions are for mixing, and you're going to use that, and you want to change it after 2 to 5 baskets, depending on how dirty the eggs are. And you want to keep that water clean using potable water. And if you have a high iron content in your water, if you have a well and you have rust stains on your toilet, that can interfere with the eggs as well. So these are all things that you need to take into consideration.
Well, those are some great tips, very good tips. And I think you have quite a few more in just a little bit. So we're going to take a break, and then we'll be back, and we'll continue to talk about backyard flocks and how we take care of our eggs. Please stay with us.
3 out of 4 people who have hepatitis C were born from 1945 to 1965. Left untreated, hepatitis C can lead to serious liver disease and even liver cancer. But treatments are now available that can cure this disease. So if you were born from 1945 to 1965, talk to your doctor about getting a blood test for hepatitis C. It could save your life.
Welcome back to Family Lifestyles. Lynn, Blankenship, and I have been talking about backyard flocks, and we've spent a little time about keeping eggs clean and that type thing. And, you know, we've kind of just centered on the backyard flock. Yeah. But what if we have a large number of chickens? Is there regulations and stuff we need to think about if we're going to sell those eggs or?
There are.
Or the meat or whatever.
So even with a fairly small backyard flock, you're going to end up with extra eggs. And a lot of people will think, well, maybe I'll sell my extra eggs at the farmer's market because, you know, we have a farmer's market in our community and why not, right?
Right.
Well, you can't just take your eggs to the farmer's market and put them in your old egg box that you had when you were still buying eggs and put them on the table and sell them.
Yeah.
All right. There are regulations. If you sell more than 60 dozen eggs a week, that means you have a lot of chickens. And if you have that many chickens, you have to have a retail license to sell your eggs, even if you're selling them at a farmer's market. If you're turning over that many, you have to apply for a retail license. If you sell your eggs to a store like the corner market and they're reselling your eggs, you have to have a distributor's license. And there's no limit on that. Like if you brought a dozen eggs to the corner market once a week and they were selling them for you, technically you have to have a distributor's license.
Okay.
Now, if you're going to sell your eggs at the farmer's market, there are guidelines in the 2021 Kentucky Proud Farmers Market Resource Manual that's available online at the Kentucky Department of Agriculture website, and probably you can get a copy from your extension office or from your farmer market manager. And you're going to want to read through that section because there's some significant guidelines on having to keep the eggs cold. You have to keep them at 45 degrees or below. If you're storing them in a cooler, you have to have something separating the egg cartons from the ice source or the coldest source so that they don't get damp. Because again, if the carton gets damp and then the eggs soak up that wetness, it's going to cause quality problems and spoilage in the eggs. Okay. There's also guidelines on the type of carton to use. You have to use newly purchased cartons, and there are labeling guidelines as well. So these eggs I purchased at the Metcalfe County Farmers Market. They're from Heinz East Fork Farm, and it tells you the type, how many eggs, the type of eggs, the farm name, a contact information, and you have to keep refrigerated at or below 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. It has to be included. And there's font size guidelines as well. All of this information is available for free online or in that market manual, and it tells you exactly what you need to do to be able to sell your eggs legally. Okay.
You mentioned that that had to be kept at 45 degrees Fahrenheit, and that was on here. A lot of people will bring eggs in, and they will just put them on the counter. And so what is the time limit before I actually put them in the refrigerator? Because, you know, they set out in the chicken coop for a little while. Then you had mentioned we needed to bring it up to room temperature. So
eggs actually will stay good at room temperature, but when you're selling them to other people, they then have to be washed. And after you wash an egg, then it has to be refrigerated. Okay. So you can't take your egg. If you take your eggs out of the coop and you don't wash them, and you've got them sitting in a container on the counter, they're fine for a while. Okay. A few days at least. But once you wash those eggs, they then have to be refrigerated. Because of the moisture pulling in issue and all of that, it shortens the lifespan once they're washed. Okay. And you can't sell them unwashed. Okay. So that's what you're looking at. And then there's
I think that's sometimes very confusing to people because you hear people say, you know, don't wash your eggs and leave them on the counter. And then you know, so thanks for clearing that up.
Let's talk about the wording. So your expiration and best by wording for eggs, there's guidelines on that. So if you use the word expiration, you have to calculate your dates from the date that the eggs are originally packed into the container. So that would be right after you've washed them, allowed them to dry, then you put them in the container and you put them in the refrigerator or cooler. Okay. That's the date that you need to calculate. It should not exceed 30 days from the day of pack. Okay. Okay. And then the best by date generally indicates the maximum time frame for expected quality, and they're calculated from the date that the eggs are packed into the container, and that may not exceed 45 days from the date of pack. Okay. So when you're looking at expiration and best quality for farm eggs really have a pretty long life.
They do.
Yes, it's pretty amazing.
30 and 45
days
is quite a while.
So when you're thinking about the eggs you buy in the store, that's about, you're looking, they're 15 to 30 days old probably.
Yeah.
You know, if they're close to their expiration date, they're going to be closer to the 30-day time range. So generally, the eggs you get at the farmer's market are super fresh, and that's why they're so good. I mean, that's why they taste so good, and the quality of the things you make with them is usually very high because they are so fresh.
Yeah.
And so that's a nice thing when you have those fresh eggs like that. That's why people love to have their backyard flocks. There's nothing like an egg that you went out and got washed and cooked.
Exactly.
You know, so good, so much better.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things that the information that's available in the USDA on their website. If you search poultry, kids can learn more about keeping poultry as well from 4-H. And the University of Kentucky also has a publication. It's ASC 229, and it's the marketing regulations affecting small-scale egg producers in Kentucky. So anyone who has a small backyard flock and who has extra eggs should check out that pub if they're considering selling them in any way, so that they know how to correctly label those eggs and how to correctly handle and store and distribute those eggs within the guidelines. And then your kids, you can go to the University of Kentucky website, and if you search 4-H poultry, it'll pull up a whole information page about the various 4-H poultry learning projects that are available, and you can go to your extension office and they have a curriculum that usually you have to purchase, but they're not too expensive. And that'll have all the guidelines for keeping poultry, showing poultry, you know, selecting poultry. All of those things that we've been talking about are going to be included in that curriculum at more of an age-appropriate level so that you can engage your children in that project.
I know I've seen a lot of the 4-H projects where they have the incubators and they hatch the eggs, and it's always exciting to me. Honestly, I had never seen the eggs hatch.
It's pretty cool.
Until I started working in Extension, and so it is really cool to let them look at the life cycle and, you know, to watch the life cycle. And that curriculum breaks all that down, you know, and shows, you know, like at 1 day, what, you know, in 2 days and 3 days and that type of thing.
How the embryo is developing in the egg.
Yes,
yeah,
it's very interesting. It is. And like I was saying, backyard flocks are a science project.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really, children can learn so much from it.
But we definitely want to keep it a fun science project and not the kind of science project where we're breeding salmonella.
Right, exactly.
Because it is very easy to turn into a petri dish.
But that's part of the science, as you mentioned earlier, that's part of the science, is learning how to do it safely.
Keep it clean, keep it safe. Exactly. Yeah. So there's, again, lots of resources. This one pub I mentioned, there's other publications available through Extension related to keeping a backyard flock. And our poultry extension contact is Dr. Jackie Jacob, and her information is also available. People can reach out to her if they have a question or a concern. She has a great deal of information and expertise when it comes to chicken flocks, and she also is our resource person for the salmonella outbreak as well.
Okay. A lot of great information, Lynn. And so, as you mentioned, you can reach out to our specialists, but you can also reach out to our ag agents at the University of Kentucky Extension. And if you have any questions, be sure to contact us. And thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.